Everybody, welcome to Celestial You. So today, there's a lot of mixed feelings about Iran, and I don't know if you know, but I did do a previous video, which I can link to this one, about the astrology of Iran with my teacher, Laura Barat. And we did a prediction in that video showing what would happen and how long it would take for the revolution in Iran. And in that video, we read the astrology of it, but we also looked at how long it would take. And so I just want to set the stage that this conflict, this revolution in Iran, is not a mission accomplished kind of deal. It's actually it's an ongoing thing that's going to keep happening in stages, on and off, sort of, and there will be a power struggle, and it will not resolve until 2030 or 2031 is really when it will resolve. And so if those of you are under the impression that this is a quick deal, it's not a quick deal, and it's kind of an evolution. So with that being said, I am going to pull up the 2026 lunar prediction for predictions for 2026 for Iran, and in light of the attack that just happened on Iran. So hopefully this will help to shine some light on the situation and understanding the energies at play, understanding the motivations at play, and really getting a grasp for how complicated it is and how dangerous it is. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my chart and we'll go over that. Okay, and so this here is the Iranian Lunar New Year chart. And essentially what it is you plot the Lunar New Year, which was the 17th of February. And what this prediction gives you is what's going to happen until the next Lunar New Year, which I think is like February 6th of 2027. And this is actually set up for that event in Tehran. And so that's how you cast the chart. And this is the chart. And so I just want to point out some things, and then I'm going to go ahead and take the chart down and just wrap up all the points that I wanted to go over. So basically this is the chart, and it's a Leo rising chart. Now, when I did the prediction of what was going to happen in 2026 for the US, it was exactly opposite. So it's really interesting. The US chart, the ascendant was over here in Aquarius, and it was very much about, the start of power to the people, the start of the information age, of power structures shifting. For Iran, it's the opposite. It's all about Leo, which is the king or the leader, right? And so there still is a power struggle because Leo is ruled by the sun. However, in this chart, also Mars is here. And so that's where the power struggle occurs for the leadership of Iran. There's a lot that goes on in this chart. But the main difference here is that we look to see where the new moon is, what planets are conjoining the new moon. In this case, Mars and Pluto. Pluto is the planet of transformation, rebirth, toxicity, power games, these kinds of things. Right here, that is happening in the 7th house. And in the mundane chart, or the chart of a nation on a national geopolitical stage, that's going to mean with allied countries or not allied countries, basically the relationship with other countries. So here it's showing that there's strain, there's conflict with other countries. And it also shows conflict because the eighth cusp is also here with the seventh one. And the eighth cusp is responsible for crises, wars. It's responsible for transitions and changes. So the question is, can you have change, eighth house, without conflict? Well, yeah, you can, but not with this chart because it's got Mars right there. Mars is masculinity, Mars is aggression, Mars is unmitigated like desire, right? In Aquarius, the desire comes from the collective, from the people. So that's why we're seeing a lot of support for Iranian regime change throughout all the different countries of expatriates, Iranians like me. And we're also seeing a lot of conflict within those groups. There are groups that don't want the influence of the US and Israel and Iran. They're particularly worried about the influence of the US and how that fomented the revolution, which gave the power to the Islamic Republic of Iran. And there are others who hearken back to the times of the Shah and Pahlavi and those, and they think that that's the right way. So there's conflict on this. You will notice that I do not usually affiliate myself with political groups or factions. That's because I have to be neutral in order to do this work, but it's also because I typically don't align fully with any groups. And I feel like that's the case for me, like even as a young person, like in school, like I never belonged to any cliques. I was always on the periphery. I knew people, but I didn't belong anywhere. I still don't belong anywhere. And so I'm just doing that, right? Now, in this case of this chart, the power or the story that's being told in Iran, it has to do with leadership. The story that's being told in America on the predictions I made were more about the struggles of the community, the populace, how we're dealing with technology, even just conflict within the nation. So I'll give it to you like this. I'll break it down like this. Iran is in a war with foreign powers. There also is there also is civil unrest in Iran. But in America, it's primarily civil unrest, civil war, right? Warring factions, left and right, being divided, that kind of thing. Now, I'm going to go over the rest of what's happening in Iran, but I want to say that when the sun is in Aquarius, no matter how you look at this chart, the leadership of Iran this year will have to take into consideration what the populace wants, what the groups want. However, that is being muddled and dictated in this year by outside influences, because the seventh cusp is dealing with other countries. That's what's happening here. And if you want to know if those other countries have good intentions, you have to look no further than Saturn's influence on this eclipse. The sun and the moon are going to be affecting something Saturnian here in Aries. Now, Aries is actually leadership, especially in the 10th cusp. 10th house is leadership. And Saturn is actually debilitated in Aries. So this can bring about the worst attributes of Saturn in this house. Typically in Vedic, when we study Vedic astrology, that means that it's debilitated, which means it's sleeping. We interpret that to mean that Saturn is maybe not, is either going to cause harm to the house. It definitely will cause harm to leadership. But also, it's not necessarily aligned actions here. And again, you have to also look at the fact that this debilitation is somewhat mitigated or canceled by the fact that the Lord of Aries, Mars, is with the exaltation Lord, son of Aries. What this means is that because Saturn is in this at the Sala Yoga with the eclipse planets, moon and sun, it means that, and because Saturn is debilitated, it means that Mars is going to take the place of what Saturn would do. Okay, if Saturn was not sleeping or debilitated in Aries, and what this means is if Iran didn't have debilitated leadership, meaning leadership that's ineffectual, that isn't supported, that is a lie, essentially, Mars is the will of the people here in Aquarius. So the will of the people are overcoming the lack of leadership in Iran. And then the will of the people are essentially asking for change because Mars always rules Aries, which Aries likes to start new things, right? That's what Aries does. And then Mars also does rule, it does rule Scorpio, and here Scorpio is notably on the fifth cusp. The fifth cusp is fall from grace. So that when I read this chart, I'm looking at a situation where the leadership of the country is generally viewed as ineffective and corrupt. And that's Saturn in Aries. And then when Mars comes about, it's coming from outside influences. It's coming from other countries, but it's also coming from the will of the people saying we want to change. So it really tells a story that these things wouldn't be happening if the people of Iran had not asked repeatedly for help. Whether it's right, what help they're getting, like I'm not going to weigh on that because I personally don't think that the US has pure intentions. Definitely don't think Israel has pure intentions right now. I mean, they have their Greater Israel project, so their intentions are to expand, to take up a lot of the Middle East, not just Gaza, not just Israel, but beyond that. And that they've been transparent about that. That's what they want to do. And so this becomes about controlling Iran, because when you have in Iran's chart for this year, when you have the 10th house, which is leadership, essentially Saturn is going to say you have to either let go of your leadership, or the leadership that you are getting is going to be somehow a lie. There's going to be trouble with this leadership. Even if, as did happen on Saturday, they killed the Ayatollah in Iran. And that did happen. And that is something that can happen. When Saturn is here in Aries, you could be getting rid of leadership. You could be killing leadership, especially because Mars is here. Saturn is about getting rid of the garbage. So while this is happening, but unfortunately, Saturn rules what's happening here in Aquarius. And so, yeah, you're getting rid of something, but you're getting something that has ulterior motives as well. And I think that's full transparency of what's happening. Both the countries causing war, intervening countries, US and Israel, and Iran, both have compromised leadership. That's what the chart says. And now, does that mean doom and gloom? Like, what does that mean overall? Well, there are indicators in this chart that indicate that there isn't a divine agenda here. Jupiter in this chart, Jupiter has always got the God planet, and in Cancer, it has wholesome intentions. It's interesting that this is happening in the 12th house, but it does not include the 12th cusp. And for me, that gives a psychological element that God is driving this from the collective subconscious of the country. And it's driving it towards a wholesome, caring, heart-centered goal. And the reason for that for this year, there seems to be a protection on the country. And that is very much going to affect the philosophy of the country. This, like I said, aspects Mercury. Mercury is the planet of communication, of thinking. And this is going to affect the philosophy, the religion of the country, but it's going to do so in a positive way. You know, so these changes are here for a reason. They're here to definitely create an avenue for philosophical and psycho-spiritual and mental realignment through this year, 2026. And it does also show, I see the North Node in the 9th house on this eclipse, and I think that just shows how Iran wants a change to the religious structure of Iran, the philosophical structure of Iran, the political structure of Iran, because Venus is right next to the North Node here. It's like right on top of the North Node in this chart. And so, and it's in the 9th house, and the 9th house deals with culture. This is a cultural, for me, that indicates that this is undergirded by a deep, deep subconscious need for a good philosophy for Iran, like a good return to culture, maybe a return to wholesomeness, to protecting family, to creating godliness in Iran, and yearning for new leadership for sure, politically for sure. And really, it shows me how much Iranians are willing to brave the unknown, to conquer their fear. That's what I'm reading in this chart entirely. Also, I want to point out that the 4th house in this chart in Mundane astrology has to do with the actual people. And it is ruled by planet Venus. It's in Libra. So it shows me that the populace is very much weighing and measuring what's happening they're using logic, they're balancing the scales, they're seeking balance in their country. And this is all ruled by an exalted Venus in Pisces. And so what does that mean? That means that in this chart, the people are seeking a change in philosophy, in the philosophy of governance also. And they're willing to take a risk. They're willing to not know how this is going to end in order to get a cultural shift in their country and also political shift, as we talked about the leadership angle. But it's really like a philosophical shift. And this shift is blessed because Venus is exalted. There's a protection on the will of the people here in Iran. It also shows that there will be breakdowns in the government, there'll be breakdowns in communications, and there'll be breakdowns in folks not being able to receive medical care in particular during this time because of what's happening in Pisces in this chart. There's also going to be a lot of confusion throughout the country about what's happening. In what direction are we going? Is this good or bad? There's like because it's uncharted territory and the ninth house rules like this idea of good and evil, there's going to be this feeling in the country of like, we don't know if this is good or evil, but we just hope and pray that it will be good. And because Venus is exalted there, it can be good and it will be good. And so even though there's a lot of confusion this year, I want to caveat that. This chart shows that the foreign powers that are quote unquote liberating the people of Iran are compromised. They're not doing this out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing it for control of the region. They want control of the surrounding countries. That's what it looks like. This is a power grab, a land grab, maybe not a land grab. It doesn't look like a land grab. In fact, it looks like the way they're going to try to control Iran is through technology. I don't know if there's some sort of like effort to lay down a surveillance grid through AI, but that's what it looks like. I think that's also the case for the US. So that's kind of something that is the detriment of the Aquarian age. The benefit is that actually, because of the nature of Aquarius, you can't fully weaponize technology against people, because in the Aquarian age, technology always leads to liberation of the people. So plot twist. And I think that's happening in the US as well. I think a lot of the brainwashing, the political clown circus that happens in the US is exposing the falseness. And we do get to see where people are being censored. We do get to see where we see the puppet masters now, right? And that's because of Aquarian technology and because this eclipse happening on this date is this new moon eclipse that we're reading right now is in Aquarius. It's showing us, it's bringing power back to the people despite having poor leadership. That's what this chart says about Iran. So I want to say that because I think there's a lot out there right now where the US is divided on this war. People in Iran, people expatriates are divided about Iran. And they're divided on how it should happen. I think in Iran and elsewhere, we all know that this regime must change. The division is happening on the how it should change. Should it change as a result of foreign influence? Should it be organic? And I think that arguments are good on both sides. One side being that, well, they're killing so many people and they're not just going to go on their own, and so we need help. And another side is, well, we need help, but if we take the help of countries that they themselves have compromised leadership, which we know this is true. I'm just laughing. If you've seen some of my other content, you'll know that there are certain documents that were recently released that show endemic corruption within the US. Go check that out. And so we know that the leadership is compromised on multiple levels throughout multiple parties. And in Iran, I'm certain that this is a power struggle, a civil struggle between factions, and then there's also external parties. But I think what's important to note, and in conclusion, is that this tees off, yes, there's foreign influence. Yes, the foreign influence is dubious. Like it's not altruistic at all. I mean, this chart says that. These are compromised leaders. Okay. You can't argue that. These are compromised, fallen leaders toppling other toxic leaders. But that's maybe God's plan here. This is how I think of it, is let the top fight it out and then let the people inherit the result. And that's what I'll say about this. So I hope that this shines some light. I hope that this gives you some small measure of comfort that there is a plan here. It's not just chaos. And again, I encourage you to watch my 2024 prediction where Laura and I went into the future and we saw how this was going to end. So I recommend that you check that out as well. So thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, share. And I hope that, my deepest hope in my heart is with the people of Iran, my culture. And I know in my heart that this culture, this richness, this love, this poetry that comes from Iran in everything that we do, in all of our passion that we bring to not only in Iran, but all over the world, the value of our ancient civilization, of our culture, and being the first culture to have a Bill of Rights to recognize religious freedom in a way that I think even the US could benefit from at this point. Our ancient culture will return. And I'm saying that because even though it breaks my heart to watch the chaos and to watch innocent people get hurt in the process, I see that there's still a protection on Iran. So thank you very much. Bye.